What made the Cromwell tank the key to British success in World War II? With unmatched speed and a powerful Meteor engine, the Cromwell became the fastest and most mobile weapon in the British arsenal. Let's uncover its secrets and the incredible role it played in WWII. The Cromwell tank, officially known as the Tank Cruiser Mark 8 Cromwell A27M, was one of the most significant British cruiser tanks used in World War II. Named after the historical figure Oliver Cromwell, this tank was revolutionary in its combination of speed, maneuverability, and solid armor. The Cromwell tank featured a powerful Rolls-Royce Meteor engine, providing both reliability and high speed. Its introduction marked a shift in British tank design towards versatility. Although the initial hopes for a high-velocity dual-purpose gun were not fully realized, leading instead to the fitting of a medium-velocity dual-purpose weapon. Development of the Cromwell started as early as 1940. At the time, the Crusader tank was on the verge of becoming outdated, and British military planners sought to replace it with something better suited to the evolving demands of modern warfare. Early prototypes, named Cavalier and Centaur, were produced by different manufacturers, each focusing on modifications that would improve upon existing designs. The Cromwell ultimately differed from these earlier iterations, mainly due to the inclusion of the superior 600 horsepower Meteor engine, which gave it the edge needed in terms of speed and power. The Cromwell first saw action during the Battle of Normandy in June 1944, serving in the armored reconnaissance regiments of several divisions, including the 7th Armored Division. The use of Cromwells in combat highlighted both their strengths and limitations. They were fast, agile, and well-loved by their crews for their low profile, which made them less of a target compared to the American Sherman tank. However, the initial underpowered guns meant that Cromwell struggled against heavier German tanks, particularly during engagements such as the Battle of Villers-Bocage. The development of the Cromwell went through several stages, each focusing on different aspects of design and performance. Initially, the British General Staff laid out specifications for a new tank, expecting it to enter service by 1942. Vauxhall and Nuffield produced prototypes called the A23 and A24, but it was ultimately Leyland and Birmingham Railway Carriage and Wagon, BRC&W, that refined the design into the Cromwell we know. Nuffield's A24 design was based on the Crusader tank and used an old Liberty engine, which proved inadequate. This delay and a subsequent focus on improvement led to the eventual adoption of the more powerful Meteor engine. An important aspect of the Cromwell's design was the development of a suitable engine. Rolls-Royce stepped in with their Rolls-Royce Meteor, an engine adapted from their Merlin Aero engine. This new power plant increased the tank's speed dramatically, allowing it to reach up to 40 miles per hour, which was impressive for a tank of its size and weight at the time. However, the added power also put extra strain on other components, leading to the need for various redesigns to maintain overall reliability. By 1942, early prototypes of Meteor-powered Cromwells were undergoing trials, showcasing their enhanced mobility. The challenges with producing a functional, reliable version of the Cromwell that could meet all of the British Army's needs led to multiple versions and designations. These included the A24 Cavalier, the A27L Centaur, and the A27M Cromwell. Each variation represented attempts to balance the demands of engine power, armament capability, and reliability. Leyland initially continued to work on Centaur, using the older Liberty engine, while BRC&W led development on the Meteor-powered Cromwell. This split focus allowed engineers to address both immediate production needs and future capabilities, ultimately resulting in the Cromwell being recognized as a highly mobile tank with impressive battlefield utility. By 1943, production was in full swing, with Leyland taking the lead in the manufacturing process. Other companies, such as English Electric and Birmingham Railway Carriage and Wagon Company, also contributed to meet the British military's demand for tanks. Despite production issues, which often arose due to parts shortages or changes in the design, over 3,000 Cromwell tanks were eventually built. The tank was deployed primarily in Europe, seeing extensive use after the Normandy landings and in campaigns that pushed further into German-occupied territory. One of the critical aspects of the Cromwell's performance was its armament. Initially designed to carry a high-velocity gun, production models instead featured the Ordnance QF 6-pounder and later the ROQF 75mm gun. The switch to the 75mm weapon was a direct response to feedback from British tank crews, who found the earlier gun lacked sufficient firepower, particularly for dealing with fortified enemy positions or anti-tank guns. The new weapon, adapted to fire American ammunition, allowed the Cromwell to effectively engage a wider variety of targets, although it still struggled against heavily armored German tanks like the Panther and Tiger. The Cromwell's agility was its greatest asset in combat. Its speed allowed it to move quickly across the battlefield, outflank enemy positions, and evade more heavily armed foes. This agility was highlighted during exercises and field trials, such as Exercise Dracula, where Cromwells were tested against American Shermans. Although the Shermans were generally more reliable, the Cromwell's superior speed and handling made it a favorite among its crews. The tank's design included 5 road wheels per side, supported by a Christie suspension system that allowed for a smoother ride over rough terrain, contributing further to its mobility. The Cromwell's operational use began with the invasion of Normandy, where it played a key role as part of the British armored divisions. Its speed and low profile were advantageous during the fast-paced advances that characterized the Allied breakout from Normandy. However, the tank was not without its issues. Its 75mm gun was less effective in penetrating German armor compared to the more powerful guns on other tanks, such as the 17-pounder mounted on Sherman Fireflies. As a result, Cromwells often operated alongside Fireflies or other tanks to provide a balanced force capable of taking on a wider range of enemy targets. The Battle of Villers-Bocage illustrated some of the limitations of the Cromwell. In this engagement, British forces, including Cromwell's, faced off against German Tiger tanks. The Cromwell's gun simply wasn't powerful enough to take on the Tiger frontally, highlighting the ongoing need for a better armed British tank. This led to further development and eventually to the introduction of the Comet tank, which carried a high-velocity 77mm gun that addressed the firepower shortcomings of the Cromwell. Despite these limitations, the Cromwell was instrumental in numerous operations. It saw action not only in Normandy, but also in the subsequent campaigns in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany. The tank's versatility allowed it to serve in different roles, from reconnaissance to providing infantry support. Its reliability, after initial kinks were worked out, made it a solid workhorse for British armored units. Another variant of the Cromwell was the Centaur, which was largely used for training or in specialized roles. Some Centaurs were equipped with a 95mm howitzer and used as close support vehicles during the Normandy landings. The Royal Marines Armored Support Group employed these howitzer-armed Centaurs to provide fire support during the D-Day invasion, although they were gradually phased out in favor of more modern tanks as the war progressed. In terms of design, the Cromwell stood out for its Christie suspension system, which provided excellent mobility. The tank was driven by a rear-mounted engine and had a 5-speed gearbox that enabled it to handle a variety of terrain. The armor ranged from 8mm to 76mm in thickness, providing reasonable protection against small arms and shell splinters, but less effective against the high-velocity anti-tank guns employed by the Germans. The tank's relatively low profile made it a harder target to hit, which combined with its speed, allowed it to excel in hit-and-run tactics. By the end of World War II, the Cromwell was being replaced by more advanced designs, such as the Comet, and eventually the Centurion, which would go on to become one of the most successful tank designs of the post-war era. However, the Cromwell's legacy lived on in the form of its contributions to tank design, particularly in the emphasis on mobility and the integration of powerful engines into relatively lightweight frames. These lessons would shape British tank development for years to come. After World War II, the Cromwell continued to see use in various capacities. During the Korean War, for example, a small number of Cromwells were used as observation tanks by British forces. These versions had their main guns removed and were equipped instead with enhanced observation and communication tools to coordinate artillery fire. Cromwells were also supplied to Allied nations. For instance, several were given to Greece, where they were used during the Greek Civil War in the late 1940s. Cromwell tanks also found their way into the arsenals of other nations, including Czechoslovakia and Israel. In the post-war years, the basic Cromwell design was further developed into the Charioteer, a tank destroyer that featured a more powerful 20-pounder gun. This vehicle saw use with the British Army, as well as with other countries such as Jordan, where it participated in conflicts in the Middle East. The story of the Cromwell tank is one of adaptation and innovation. Developed in response to the changing needs of armored warfare, the Cromwell represented a shift towards faster, more mobile tanks that could operate effectively in a variety of roles. While it had its limitations, particularly in terms of firepower against heavily armored German tanks, it was nevertheless a critical component of the British armored forces during World War II. Its speed, combined with the ingenuity of British engineers, ensured that it remained relevant throughout the war, and its influence can be seen in the designs that followed. The Cromwell was a symbol of the British Army's resilience and adaptability. Faced with the challenges of an evolving battlefield, British tank designers were able to create a vehicle that met many of the demands of modern warfare. Though eventually overshadowed by more heavily armed tanks like the Comet and Centurion, the Cromwell's legacy is a testament to the importance of speed, reliability, and versatility in armored vehicle design.